roughly 75% of the world today still follows one of these isms. Chapter 2, that's the axial age, chapter 2, modernism. We need to jump ahead to 1619 of the Common Era. I have a month, November 1619. I even have 2 days, November 10th and 11th, 1619. A French mathematician turned soldier, fighting in the Catholic army of Maximilian I, and on his return to the battle, after attending the coronation of Ferdinand V, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, is delayed by winter weather in the small town of Ulm near Munich, Germany. He spends 2 days sitting in a stove-heated room, and there he has 3 dreams that set him on his life's journey to reform all knowledge. Must have been quite the fire in that stove. Modernism is the second great transformation in reordering of the world's metaphysical furniture. This soldier and founder of analytic geometry is also the father of modern philosophy. You know his name, René Descartes. He describes these 2 days as the beginning of his attempts to put science on a firm philosophical footing. He did it by doubting everything around him, even God, but came up against an undoubtable, unshakable experience. His very own doubting proved that at least he existed. Right? Clever move. His thinking, in Latin cogito, proved his existence. Ergo sum, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am, are modernism's first words. Descartes' solitary pursuit of truth and his division of reality into mind and body cleaved the natural world in two and put the human individual at the center of a new and different ism, individualism. Add to this John Locke's defense of private property and his radical redefinition of the concept sovereign to include not just the king, that's who the sovereign used to be. Locke said we can all be sovereigns. We can all be kings and queens. He defined the concept sovereign to include not just the king, but all humans in their pursuit of life, liberty, and material happiness. Materialism. And Adam Smith's redefinition of the market to include mechanization and self-centered invisible hands, or capitalism. Individualism, materialism, and capitalism, and we have the three primary components of the coordinating philosophy behind our 400-year-old worldview. Homo sapiens, the wise one, become Homo economicus. Happiness is no longer a higher pursuit that takes us out of our smaller selves, but rather the individual self-satisfaction and celebration of our smaller individual selves. And it is achieved not through spiritual practice and philosophical contemplation, but by the production and acquisition of material goods. The term economics means household management. Oikos means house, nomic means control or management. Economics means household management. In modernism, the house becomes the earth itself, and we become its managers. It's no longer humans that need improvement, as the axial traditions emphasize, but rather the earth itself needs improvement. We're fine. It's the earth that needs an upgrade. The philosopher Immanuel Kant used the phrase dare to know to describe this modern philosophical transformation. Dare to know. I'll suggest another. If the Earth had been a storefront in one of the Milky Way's planetary neighborhoods, there would now be a sign in the window that read, and you can guess, under new management. Scientists, economists, and engineers replace philosophers and theologians. I'm just jealous. Laboratories, factories, and shopping centers become the new temples and libraries. We see this household management in early modern agricultural advances too, in plow designs, plant varieties, new form of crop rotations, and later high-yield grains, the steam engine, threshers, modern irrigation systems, and the Haber-Bosch process of chemically synthesizing nitrogen. And according to Václav Smil, responsible for 40% of the world's population today. That is a chemical process. Is responsible for 40% of us sitting in here today. But the exponential growth of the human population begins in the early modern period, long before Haber-Bosch. And current estimates place our control over the Earth's total net primary photosynthetic production, sorry, that's a long phrase, at nearly half. That is, we essentially use about half of the net primary production of the Earth for ourselves. And not surprisingly, modern agriculture is the largest contributor to species extinction, according to the Ecosystems Assessment Report. But you already know these statistics and more. You're here to be made happy, not sad, so we'll just keep going. In hindsight, we can question two fundamental assumptions that both axial and modern transformations shared. The first is they give most of the credit for their successes either to human cleverness or to the divine. Nature is always a bit player, a passive instrument given us by the Creator, or simply a resource for us to use. It is God's grace or human creativity that makes the difference. The second assumption is that these traditions believe that taming, subduing, or ignoring nature's wildness are the keys to success. Their collective philosophical assumptions in agricultural productivity, with boosts from coal, oil, and natural gas, blinded them to the creative, dynamic, ecospheric processes that stand behind all of our creative ventures and transformations. But this new vision took time to develop. So let's jump ahead again. This is chapter 3 and proposition 3, the latest collaboration of philosophy and farming. April 23rd, 1851. An underemployed Harvard graduate gives a lecture at the Lyceum in Concord, Massachusetts, extolling the virtues of walking. He calls it sauntering, and he recommends a daily 4-hour dose of it. Halfway through the talk, he fires a shot across the bow. You know it. In wildness is the preservation of the world. I saw that over a bar in Chicago on Thursday, which suggests it's penetrating, right, into the culture. In wildness is the preservation of the world, not in reason or the divine or even the mechanical laws of nature, and certainly not in our managing and control of nature. Thoreau introduces audience to wildness as a process, not a thing. And then he claims that it's found in all things, and it's found in cultures, it's found in people, and it's absolutely necessary. We need it. It stands behind everything. But it's too frequently feared and controlled and tamed and destroyed, all in the name of the new household management. Thoreau counters this sentiment. All good things are wild and free. Here's a moral claim, all good things, but it's also a claim about reality, about what it means to be in the world. In philosophical language, it marks the beginning of a new ontology, a new way of understanding the nature of reality. Thoreau sees, too, that a wild world cannot be completely knowable. And so he talks about ignorance in this essay. He calls it a beautiful ignorance, a sympathy with intelligence. And he says this should be our epistemological stance. This should be how we should come to understand how we know the world. We don't know hardly any of it. That's how we have to approach it that way. Where am I? In this single lecture, one that Thoreau gave more than any other, and that he regarded as a sort of introduction to all that he would write thereafter, are the seeds of a new coordinating philosophy. With a wild world at its center, a potentially new system of meaning, a worldview waiting further enunciation. It signaled, I think, a shift in consciousness away from reductive and fixed categories and toward a living, dynamic, complex, emergent wildness. The 19th century was an age of ecology, but it was also an age of ontology, a deep and restless reordering of the primary units of reality, including the notions of human, from Homo economicus to Homo ecologicus, or maybe Homo ignoramus, or something in between. Philosophical seeds of change, like their physical counterparts, have a way of getting into the cultural air and emerging in new and distant places. And I'm not suggesting that Thoreau's ideas were the cause, but these ideas were in the air at the time. Darwin published his Origin of Species in 1859. It is a radical reconfiguration of the origins and processes behind life. So is the idea of national parks in a young America and the wilderness movement. New York State, my home state, constitutionally declares in 1895 a part of itself forever wild. The Federal Wilderness Act comes almost 70 years later, and we celebrate its 50th anniversary this month. Aldo Leopold seeks to bring these ideas to a wider audience in his Sand County Almanac, a holy book in Wallace Stegner's words, and a great work of philosophy in the emerging worldview. New voices emerge in agriculture and ecology: Liberty Hyde Bailey, Sir Albert Howard, J. Russell Smith, Howard T. Odom, Stan Rowe. New efforts focus on soil conservation and species protection. We see the birth of the new agrarianism, advances in ecology, evolutionary biology, and agroecology, perennial agriculture. Modernism's cart lost two of its wheels in the 19th and 20th centuries. It's a terrible image in a way. Modernism still runs our life, but it's a cart with missing two wheels, so it's careening, right? It's out of control, and it's not slowing down. It lost two of its wheels in the 19th and 20th centuries. The first as a result of evolutionary biology, the second due to a heresy in the canonical first science of modernism. What's the canonical first science of modernism? Physics. What emerges there is a strange new world of probability, where God plays dice, and light is both particle and wave. No longer billiard ball atoms in a void, but a wild, invisible universe of pulsing energy matter packets that show up when we observe them but are otherwise mere probabilities. It is here in this new world of probabilistic uncertainty that we find Alfred North Whitehead. So now I'll put Alfred North Whitehead's ideas in with Thoreau and those folks. Alfred North Whitehead is confronting the failures of modern science, and he's postulating an alternative system, a system that goes beyond Descartes, beyond Newton, beyond Einstein even. And it's the first work of its kind to take account of Darwin's work. And yet again, an attempt to reorder the universe, literally reorder the universe, this time in hopes of putting postmodern science and postmodern culture on firmer foundations. So, warning, here comes Whitehead. I told you I'd warm you up first, but now we have to do a little bit of Whitehead. So let me try.